1. We're diving into a classic beauty that's up for grabs on Craigslist. Get ready to feast your eyes on a 1985 Cadillac Fleetwood Brougham d'Elegance. This luxurious ride is powered by a 4.1-liter engine and comes fully loaded with all the power features you could dream of. The interior is draped in plush velour, giving you that true Cadillac experience. And get this, it's got just 40,000 miles on the odometer. That's right, this baby has been cherished and well maintained. Now the seller does mention some small paint blemishes, but hey, that's just a little character for a car that's been around for over 3 decades. The good news is, there's no rust to be found. And the interior. It's like stepping into a time capsule. It's in pristine condition. But here's the kicker. This Cadillac comes with 24-karat gold keys. Talk about a touch of opulence. And if you're a stickler for documentation, you'll be thrilled to know that the seller has the full purchase documentation from when the car was brand new. So, if you're in the market for a classic ride that's got style, luxury, and a little bit of swagger, this 1985 Cadillac Fleetwood might just be the one for you. The seller is asking $10,900, which seems like a fair price for a piece of automotive history. As always, be sure to do your due diligence and check the car out in person before making any decisions. But if everything checks out, you might just find yourself cruising down the road in this timeless beauty. 2. We've got a real treat for you. A 1978 Chrysler Newport that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This classic beauty is a true testament to the era of big American automobiles, and it's one of the last of its kind. First things first, let's talk about the condition. The seller notes that the car is in very good original condition, with the exception of the ignition system. But don't worry, they've got most of the original system on hand. There's a small crease along the left rear quarter panel and a few minor dents, but that's to be expected with a 46-year-old car. The underbody and overall body are in great shape, with only a small rust spot on the bottom of the left front fender. Now, let's talk about the interior. The seller says it's in good condition, and the car even has a working AM/FM radio with a cassette player that sounds great. The vinyl top is also in very good condition, which is a big plus. Under the hood, you'll find a 360 Ci V8 motor paired with an automatic transmission. The car has just 44,114 original miles on the odometer, which is pretty impressive for its age. The seller mentions that they're not afraid to drive it anywhere, and it uses no oil and runs great. The seller bought this beauty out of Arkansas 3 years ago and has kept it in a heated, cooled garage ever since. It's clear that they've taken good care of it. Now let's talk price. The seller is asking $8,500 for this classic ride. Considering its condition and the fact that it's one of the last of its kind, that seems like a fair price to me. The seller does mention a small crack in the dash, but that's a minor issue compared to everything else this car has going for it. If you're interested in this 1978 Chrysler Newport, the seller asks that you call the number listed in the ad. It's not a cell phone, so texting won't work, and they won't respond to emails. Overall, this is a solid car for its age and a true piece of American automotive history. If you're in the market for a classic ride that's sure to turn heads, this might just be the one for you. 3. We've got a sweet ride to check out. A 1974 Chevrolet Corvette Stingray that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This classic beauty is priced at just $6,900, which seems like a pretty solid deal for a piece of American muscle car history. Now, let's dive into the details. The seller mentions that this Corvette is rocking a 350 cubic inch V8 engine and an automatic transmission, which should make for a smooth and powerful driving experience. The odometer shows 81,000 miles, which is relatively low for a car of this age. The seller also notes that the car has been garage kept and the paint is in really good shape. That's always a plus, especially for a classic car like this. It's got removable tops, which is perfect for those sunny weekend cruises. One thing to keep in mind is that while this Corvette does have factory AC, it's not currently connected. But hey, with a little bit of work, you could be riding in cool comfort in no time. The seller has also done some recent maintenance on the car, including new plugs, wires, distributor, cap, gas tank, and fuel pump. That's a good sign that they've been taking care of this classic ride. Overall, this 1974 Chevrolet Corvette Stingray seems like a solid choice for any car enthusiast looking to add a classic to their collection. With its clean Florida title and the seller's description of its excellent condition, it's definitely worth checking out. Just remember, as with any used car purchase, it's always a good idea to get a thorough inspection before making a final decision. 4. We've got a real treat for you. A 1984 Chevrolet Caprice that's up for sale on Craigslist. This classic ride is priced at $14,000, which might seem a bit steep at first glance, but let's dive into the details and see what makes this car special. First off, the seller mentions that this Caprice has only 37,000 miles on the odometer. That's incredibly low mileage for a car that's almost 40 years old. It's clear that this car has been well maintained and cherished by its previous owners. Under the hood, you'll find a powerful 8-cylinder engine that the seller says runs like a champ even at wide-open throttle. That's the kind of confidence you want to hear when you're considering a classic car like this. The seller also notes that the car has ice-cold AC, which is a must-have feature for those hot summer cruises. Plus, the car has recently had a coolant flush, so you can rest assured that the cooling system is in good shape. Other features include tinted windows, a nice sound system with 2 kicker 12-inch subwoofers, new tires, working windshield wipers, and all lights in working order. The car even comes with a spare tire and jack, so you'll be prepared for any unexpected roadside situations. One thing that really stands out about this Caprice is the attention to detail. The seller mentions that all wires are connected to either a fuse or a fusible link, which shows that they've taken the time to ensure that the electrical system is in top shape. The car's paint color is a beautiful blue, and the seller notes that the title is clean. That's always a good sign when you're buying a used car. Overall, this 1984 Chevrolet Caprice seems like a fantastic choice for anyone looking for a classic car with low mileage and plenty of features. While the price might be a bit high, the seller's detailed description and the car's excellent condition suggest that it could be worth the investment for the right buyer. As always, be sure to get a thorough inspection before making a final decision, but this Caprice definitely seems like a car worth checking out. 5. We've got a real gem to share with you. A 1983 Chrysler Imperial that's up for sale on Craigslist. This classic luxury car is priced at $9,500, and from the seller's description, it sounds like it could be a real steal. First off, let's talk about the rarity of this car. The seller mentions that this was the last of the big Mopar luxury cars before the K-car era, and it was a unique styling project led by Lee Iacocca himself. The Imperial was featured in several movies, including Sharky's Machine, Stick, Gumball Rally, and even Fast and Furious, which just goes to show how iconic this car really is. Under the hood, you'll find a bulletproof 318 5.2L engine, which the seller notes is more reliable than the engines found in Cadillacs of the same era. And with only 47,000 miles on the odometer, this car has plenty of life left in it. The seller has put a lot of work into this car, including a paint job, a restored radio and tape player, a new ignition system, starter, power antenna, and more. The car also has a stunning Mark Cross leather interior and Cartier Crystal Pentastar badges, which add to its luxury feel. One thing that really stands out about this Imperial is its color combo. The midnight blue, or night watchman blue, exterior is a rare find, as most surviving Imperials are in more muted colors like green or beige. And the seller notes that the interior is in excellent condition with no body rust. The seller also mentions that this car is not a sun-baked southern car or a Rust Belt car that was driven daily, which is a good sign for its overall condition. They even drove the car 300 miles straight home and reported that it runs like new with a firm shifting transmission. Overall, this 1983 Chrysler Imperial seems like a fantastic find for any car enthusiast looking for a unique and luxurious classic car. While the price might be a bit high, the seller's detailed description and the car's excellent condition suggest that it could be worth the investment for the right buyer. As always, be sure to inspect the car thoroughly before making a final decision, but this Imperial definitely seems like a car worth checking out. 6. we've got a real beauty to share with you. A 1964 Chrysler Newport that's up for sale on Craigslist. This classic sedan is priced at $9,250, and from the seller's description, it sounds like it could be a real gem. First off, let's talk about the condition of this car. The seller describes it as excellent, which is always a good sign when you're looking at a classic car. They also mention that it's mostly original, which is a big plus for collectors and enthusiasts who value authenticity. One of the coolest features of this Newport is the push-button transmission. This was a unique feature on many Chryslers of this era, and it's a fun and quirky detail that sets this car apart from others. The seller notes that the transmission is friendly to drive, which is great news for anyone who wants to take this beauty out on the road. Under the hood, you'll find a reliable engine that the seller says is in good working order. And if you're planning on cruising in this car during the summer months, you'll be happy to know that it's equipped with comfortable air conditioning. The odometer on this car has rolled over, which means it's likely that the actual mileage is higher than the 27,000 miles shown. However, given the excellent condition of the car, it's clear that it has been well maintained throughout its life. The paint color is described as custom, which could mean a few different things. It's possible that the car has been repainted in a non-original color, or that it has a unique finish that sets it apart from other Newports. Either way, it's a detail that adds to the car's character and charm. Overall, this 1964 Chrysler Newport seems like a fantastic find for anyone in the market for a classic sedan. With its excellent condition, unique features, and reliable mechanics, it's a car that could provide years of enjoyment for its new owner. As always, be sure to inspect the car thoroughly before making a final decision, but based on the seller's description, this Newport definitely seems like a car worth checking out. 7. We've got a real treat for you. A 1977 Chevrolet Corvette that's up for sale on Craigslist. This classic sports car is priced at $15,000, and based on the seller's description, it sounds like it could be a fantastic find. First off, let's talk about the condition of this Corvette. The seller describes it as excellent, which is always a good sign when you're looking at a classic car. They mention that the car has a recently rebuilt engine and transmission, which is a huge plus for anyone who wants a reliable and powerful ride. One of the coolest features of this Corvette is the T-top roof, which allows you to open up the car and enjoy the sunshine on those perfect summer days. And if you're planning on cruising in style, you'll be happy to know that this car is equipped with air conditioning, although the seller notes that the AC compressor is not currently connected. The seller has also put a lot of work into updating and improving this Corvette. They've installed brand new brake pads, calipers, and rotors, as well as a new starter, alternator, radiator, hoses, and fan belts. This means that the car should be in top mechanical condition and ready to hit the road. But the upgrades don't stop there. The interior of this Corvette is also brand new, with a sleek, smoke gray color scheme that looks absolutely stunning. And if you're a fan of bold and beautiful exteriors, you'll love the new briar blue metallic paint job that makes this car really stand out. With only 83,000 miles on the odometer and a clean title, this Corvette seems like a fantastic find for anyone in the market for a classic sports car. And with plenty of summer left to enjoy it, now could be the perfect time to make this beauty your own. Of course, as with any used car purchase, it's always a good idea to get a thorough inspection before making a final decision. But based on the seller's detailed description and the excellent condition of this Corvette, it definitely seems like a car worth checking out. If you're in the San Diego area and in the market for a classic ride, this 1977 Chevrolet Corvette could be the perfect choice. 8. We've got a sweet ride to share with you. A 1978 Chevrolet Camaro that's up for sale on Craigslist. This classic muscle car is priced at $13,500, and while it's not a true Z28, it's still a real head-turner. First off, let's talk about the condition of this Camaro. The seller describes it as good, which is a solid rating for a car that's over 40 years old. They mention that the paint isn't perfect, but that's to be expected with a classic car like this. The important thing is that it's a solid car overall. Under the hood, you'll find a remanufactured 305 cubic inch V8 engine, which should provide plenty of power for cruising around town or hitting the highway. The seller notes that the car runs and drives great, with no mechanical issues to speak of. One thing to keep in mind is that while this Camaro has factory air conditioning, the compressor does need to be rebuilt or replaced. That's something to factor into your budget if you're considering making an offer on this car. The seller has made some nice upgrades to this Camaro, including new tires, rear adjustable air shocks, and a new exhaust system. They also have the front spoiler, which is pictured both on and off the car. It's a cool addition that really adds to the sporty look of this ride. Now, it's important to note that this Camaro is a clone, not a true Z28. The seller is upfront about this, and even provides the original build spec sheet to show that it was originally a Rally Sport model. But with the right badging and some minor tweaks, it's easy to see how this car could pass for a Z28 at first glance. Overall, this 1978 Chevrolet Camaro seems like a solid choice for anyone in the market for a classic muscle car. It's got a powerful engine, some nice upgrades, and a look that's sure to turn heads wherever you go. The price might be a bit high for a clone, but if you're willing to overlook that detail, this could be a really fun car to own and drive. As always, be sure to get a thorough inspection before making a final decision, but based on the seller's description, this Camaro definitely seems worth checking out. 9. We've got a bit of a project car to share with you. A 1978 Oldsmobile Regency 98 that's up for sale on Craigslist. This classic sedan is priced at just $1,500, but as the seller notes, it's going to need some serious work to get it back on the road. First off, let's talk about the condition of this Regency 98. The seller is upfront about the fact that it's a salvage car, which means it's going to need a lot of TLC to get it back into shape. They mention that the car hasn't been started in 15 years, which is a pretty long time for any vehicle to sit idle. The seller also notes that the car has been owned since it was brand new, which is a cool bit of history. However, they also mention that it's been sitting outside for quite some time, which means it's pretty much weathered at this point. That's something to keep in mind if you're considering taking on this project. One of the biggest challenges with this Regency 98 is likely going to be getting it running again after such a long period of inactivity. The seller doesn't provide any information about the condition of the engine or other mechanical components, so it's hard to say exactly what kind of work will be needed to get this car back on the road. The exterior of the car is described as brown in color, but given the weathering that's taken place over the years, it's likely that the paint is in pretty rough shape at this point. The interior condition isn't mentioned, but it's safe to assume that it will need some work as well. Now, it's important to keep in mind that this Regency 98 is being sold as a project car. It's not something that you're going to be able to hop in and drive away, at least not without putting in some serious work first. But if you're up for the challenge and have the skills and resources to take on a restoration project, this could be a really cool car to bring back to life. The seller does mention that they can help load the car onto a flatbed trailer, which is a nice touch. It means you won't have to worry about trying to get it running well enough to drive it home yourself. Overall, this 1978 Oldsmobile Regency 98 is definitely a project car, and it's not going to be for everyone. But if you're a skilled mechanic, or just love the idea of bringing a classic car back to life, this could be a really fun and rewarding project. Just be sure to go into it with your eyes wide open and a realistic understanding of the work that will be involved. And as always, be sure to inspect the car thoroughly before making any final decisions. 10. We've got a real classic to share with you. A 1968 Cadillac Eldorado that's up for sale on Craigslist. This iconic luxury car is priced at $9,200, and while it does need some work, it could be a fantastic project for the right buyer. First off, let's talk about the condition of this Eldorado. The seller describes it as good, which is a solid starting point for a car that's over 50 years old. They mention that it runs and drives great, which is always a good sign. However, they also note that it needs some body work and a new paint job, so that's something to keep in mind if you're considering making an offer. Under the hood, you'll find a big block V8 engine, which is exactly what you want to see in a classic Cadillac like this. These engines are known for their power and reliability, so it's great to hear that this one is running strong. The interior of the car is described as decent, which suggests that it's not perfect, but also not in terrible shape. The seller mentions that the car has power windows, which is a nice feature to have in a classic car like this. Now, it's important to keep in mind that this Eldorado is being sold as a project car. The seller is upfront about the fact that it needs some work, particularly in the body and paint department. But if you're handy with tools and have some experience with car restoration, this could be a really fun and rewarding project to take on. One thing that's great about this Eldorado is that it comes with a clean title in hand. That means you won't have to worry about any legal or paperwork issues when it comes to transferring ownership of the car. Overall, this 1968 Cadillac Eldorado seems like a solid choice for anyone who loves classic cars and isn't afraid of a little bit of work. It's got a strong engine, a decent interior, and a ton of potential for restoration. The price might be a bit high for a car that needs this much work, but if you're passionate about Cadillacs and have the skills to bring this one back to its former glory, it could be a really rewarding project. As always, be sure to inspect the car thoroughly before making any final decisions, but based on the seller's description, this Eldorado definitely seems worth checking out. 11. We've got a bit of a fixer-upper to share with you, a 1977 Chevy Nova that's up for sale on Craigslist. This classic muscle car is priced at $7,500 or best offer, but as the seller notes, it does have a major mechanical issue that needs to be addressed. First off, let's talk about the condition of this Nova. The seller describes it as fair, which is an honest assessment given the blown head gasket. They're upfront about the fact that the car will need some serious repair work to get it back on the road, which is definitely something to keep in mind if you're considering making an offer. That being said, the seller also notes that the car is in excellent condition otherwise, with less than 50,000 miles on the odometer. They've made a ton of upgrades to the car, including a new dual exhaust system, brakes, wiring, alternator, starter, battery, and fans. The car also has an epic stereo system with a subwoofer and Bluetooth connectivity, which is a nice modern touch. Under the hood, you'll find a V8 engine, which is exactly what you want to see in a classic muscle car like this. However, with the blown head gasket, it's hard to say exactly what kind of shape the engine is in overall. It's definitely going to need some work to get it running properly again. The exterior of the car is described as green in color, and while the seller doesn't provide any photos, it's safe to assume that the paint is in decent shape given the low mileage and overall condition of the car. Now, it's important to keep in mind that this Nova is being sold as is, with a major mechanical issue. The seller is upfront about this and is offering the car at a discounted price as a result. They even mention that once the head gasket is repaired, the car could be worth over $20,000, which suggests that there's a lot of potential value here for the right buyer. The seller also mentions that they're open to trades for a more modern working car, which could be a good option if you have something to offer in exchange. Overall, this 1977 Chevy Nova is definitely a project car, and it's not going to be for everyone. But if you're a skilled mechanic or just love the idea of bringing a classic muscle car back to life, this could be a really fun and rewarding project. Just be sure to go into it with a clear understanding of the work that will be involved and the potential costs of repairing that blown head gasket. And as always, be sure to inspect the car thoroughly before making any final decisions or offers. 12. We've got a real gem to share with you. A 1965 Pontiac Lehman's convertible that's up for sale on Craigslist. This classic beauty is priced at $15,000, and while it's not in perfect condition, it's got a lot of great features that make it a real head-turner. First off, let's talk about the overall condition of this Lehman's. The seller describes it as good, which is a fair assessment given the car's age and the fact that it's been repainted and has some rust issues. However, they also note that the car is in very original condition, which is a big plus for collectors and enthusiasts who value authenticity. Under the hood, you'll find a 326 cubic inch V8 engine with a 2-barrel carburetor, which is paired with a 3-speed manual transmission. This classic powertrain combo should provide plenty of get up and go for cruising around town or hitting the highway. The seller has made a number of upgrades and improvements to this Lehman's, including new shocks, tires, and restored Rally 2 wheels that have been powder-coated and painted. The car also has new trim rings, hubcaps, and a new wood steering wheel, which add to its classic look and feel. In terms of functionality, the seller notes that all of the electric components and the heater work as they should, including the original radio. The convertible top is also in excellent condition with an electric motor that works great. Now it's important to note that this Lehman's does have some rust issues, particularly in the rear quarters and trunk area. However, the seller notes that there's no rust in the rockers or floor pans, which is a good sign. The body also has some scrapes, nicks, and bruises, but overall it looks great thanks to a driver-quality paint job done in the original color back in the 90s. The interior of the car is original and worn, which is to be expected given the car's age and mileage. The odometer has rolled over, so the actual mileage is unknown, but the seller does mention that the car has 138,000 miles on it. Overall, this 1965 Pontiac Lehman's convertible seems like a great choice for anyone who loves classic cars and isn't afraid of a little bit of work. It's got a strong powertrain, some nice upgrades, and a ton of original charm. The rust issues and worn interior might be a turnoff for some buyers, but if you're willing to put in a little bit of elbow grease, this could be a really fun and rewarding car to own. As always, be sure to inspect the car thoroughly before making any final decisions, but based on the seller's description, this Lehman's definitely seems worth checking out. 13. We've got a real piece of American muscle to share with you, a 1972 Chevrolet Impala that's up for sale on Craigslist. This classic ride is priced at $7,500, and while it does need some work, it's got a lot of potential for the right buyer. First off, let's talk about the overall condition of this Impala. The seller describes it as good, which is a fair assessment given the car's age and the fact that it needs some cosmetic work. The body is straight, which is a big plus, but the car does need a new paint job and some interior work to really shine. Under the hood, you'll find a 350 cubic inch V8 engine with electronic ignition, which the seller notes is mechanically sound and runs strong. The suspension is also described as sturdy, which is great news for anyone who wants to take this classic out on the open road. One of the coolest features of this Impala is the aircraft high beams, which are sure to turn heads wherever you go. The seller also mentions that this model is very popular and has easy access to parts and accessories, which is a big plus for anyone who wants to take on a restoration project. Now it's important to note that this Impala does have some miles on it, 103,372 to be exact. But for a car that's almost 50 years old, that's not necessarily a deal breaker. The seller is upfront about the mileage and the fact that the car needs some work, which is always a good sign. In terms of the overall vibe of this ad, the seller definitely has a sense of humor. They note that this Impala is genuine Motor City steel that laughs at Fords, which is sure to get a chuckle out of any Chevy enthusiast. They also mention that the car deserves a great home, which suggests that they're looking for a buyer who will appreciate this classic ride for what it is. The seller is firm but flexible on the price, which means there may be some wiggle room for negotiation. However, they're also clear that they're only interested in serious inquiries and will only accept cash or a cashier's check. They also note that there's no tire kickers, traders, or gotta ask my wifers allowed, which is a funny way of saying that they're not interested in wasting anyone's time. Overall, this 1972 Chevrolet Impala seems like a great project car for anyone who loves classic American muscle. It's got a strong engine, a straight body, and a ton of potential for restoration. The price might be a bit high for a car that needs this much work, but if you're passionate about Impalas and have the skills to bring this one back to its former glory, it could be a really rewarding project. As always, be sure to inspect the car thoroughly before making any final decisions. But based on the seller's description, this Impala definitely seems worth checking out. 14. We've got a real classic to share with you, a 1966 Chevrolet Bel Air that's up for sale on Craigslist. This vintage beauty is priced at $15,000, and based on the seller's description, it seems like it could be a great find for the right buyer. First off, let's talk about the overall condition of this Bel Air. The seller describes it as good, which is a solid assessment for a car that's over 50 years old. They note that the body is straight and all the trim is intact, which is a big plus for collectors and enthusiasts who value originality. Under the hood, you'll find the original 283 cubic inch V8 engine, which has been mildly upgraded for better performance. The seller mentions that the car runs strong, which is always a good sign. The transmission has been upgraded to a TH350, which should provide smooth and reliable shifting. The seller has made some other nice upgrades to this Bel Air, including front disc brakes and 15 Mach 7 rally wheels, which give it a sporty look. The car also has a 4-row radiator, which should help keep the engine cool even on hot summer days. In terms of the exterior, the seller notes that the car has an older paint job in the original willow green color. While it may not be perfect, it's great to see that the car hasn't been repainted in some garish modern color. Inside, the interior is described as clean and mostly original, with new carpet and seats that were redone about 20 years ago. It's always nice to see a classic car with an interior that's been well maintained. The seller has owned this Bel Air since 2000 and bought it in Texas, which is a good sign that it's been well cared for over the years. However, they note that they no longer have the time or interest in the car, which is why they're selling it. One thing to keep in mind is that the odometer has rolled over, so the actual mileage is unknown. However, the seller does mention that the car has 142,000 miles on it, which is not unreasonable for a car of this age. The seller is open to reasonable offers, but they're only accepting cash and are not interested in any scams or lowball offers. They also note that if the ad is still up, the car is still available, which is always good to know. Overall, this 1966 Chevrolet Bel Air seems like a great find for anyone who loves classic cars and wants a solid, well-maintained vehicle with some nice upgrades. The price may be a bit high for some buyers, but given the car's condition and the seller's description, it could be worth it for the right person. As always, be sure to inspect the car thoroughly before making any final decisions. But based on the ad, this Bel Air definitely seems worth checking out. 15. We've got a classic muscle car to share with you, a 1979 Pontiac Firebird that's up for sale on Craigslist. This vintage ride is priced at $7,000, and while it does have some cosmetic issues, it could be a great project car for the right buyer. First off, let's talk about the overall condition of this Firebird. The seller describes it as good, but they also note that the body has some dents and dings from over the years. They're upfront about the fact that the rear of the car needs the most work, with a hole in the trunk and some damage to the quarter panels where a previous owner had installed a spoiler. Despite these issues, the seller notes that the car is fairly solid overall. They mention that they intended to get the body work done but never got around to it, which is a common story with project cars like this. Under the hood, the original engine has been swapped out for a 350 cubic inch V8, which should provide plenty of power for cruising around town or hitting the highway. The car also has a Formula model hood, which adds to its sporty look. The seller notes that they bought the car a few years ago but haven't driven it as much as they'd like, which is why they've decided to let it go. They mention that the car doesn't have many mechanical issues, aside from a possible coolant leak that they haven't been able to locate. One thing to keep in mind is that the odometer shows 100,000 miles, which is not uncommon for a car of this age. However, given the engine swap and the overall condition of the car, it's hard to say exactly how much wear and tear it has experienced over the years. The exterior of the car is painted red, which is a classic color for a Firebird. While the paint may not be perfect, it's still an eye-catching shade that's sure to turn heads wherever you go. Overall, this 1979 Pontiac Firebird seems like a solid project car for anyone who loves classic muscle cars and isn't afraid to put in some work. The body issues and possible coolant leak are definitely things to keep in mind, but if you're handy with tools, and have some experience with car restoration, this could be a really fun and rewarding project. The price seems reasonable for a car in this condition, but as always, be sure to inspect it thoroughly before making any final decisions. If you're looking for a vintage ride with plenty of potential, this Firebird could be the perfect choice. 16. Let me tell you about this awesome 1963 Chevy Corvair I just stumbled upon on Craigslist. It's a real gem, priced at $5,500, and it's up for grabs right now. This beauty has been cruising the streets of Carson City since day one, and it's got a clean Nevada title to prove it. The seller bought it from an older couple who got it straight from the original owners. Talk about a piece of history. Now, I gotta be honest with you guys, it's not perfect, but what classic is? The odometer shows just 7,000 miles, which the seller was told is original. That's practically nothing for a car this age. The body is solid, and it's been repainted at some point, giving it a fresh look. Under the hood, you've got a 6-cylinder engine paired with a 4-speed manual transmission, perfect for those who love to really feel connected to their ride. It's rear-wheel drive, just like a classic should be. The seller mentions an oil leak, and they're upfront about not knowing much about classic cars. But hey, that's part of the charm of owning a vintage ride, right? A little TLC, and you'll have this baby purring in no time. The underbody has very little rust, which is fantastic news for a car of this age. All the glass is good, the lights work, and it's still rocking its original hubcaps. The tires have plenty of life left in them too. Look, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. This Corvair needs some work. But that's what makes it such an exciting project. It runs and drives, and with a little love and attention, you could have a real showstopper on your hands. So, if you're in the market for a solid classic with tons of potential, this 1963 Chevy Corvair might just be the ticket. It's a beautiful piece of American automotive history, just waiting for the right enthusiast to come along and give it the care it deserves. Who's up for the challenge? 17. All right, let's dive deeper into this classic beauty. The 1962 Studebaker Hawk is a true icon of American automotive design, and this particular example seems to be a standout specimen. Let's break it down a bit more for all you gearheads out there. First off, the Hawk series was Studebaker's attempt to compete with the likes of Ford's Thunderbird, and it's easy to see why it turned heads back in the day. This 62 model represents the final evolution of the Hawk design, with its distinctive long hood and short deck proportions that scream classic American sports coupe. The fact that this Hawk is powered by the factory 289 V8 is a big deal. This engine was no slouch, producing around 210 horsepower in its base form, which was plenty of grunt for the early 60s. Paired with the 2-speed automatic, you're looking at a powertrain that should provide a nice balance of period-correct performance and cruising comfort. Now let's talk about some of those features that make this Hawk special. The vintage AC is a rare find in a car of this age, and it's a feature that can make the difference between a fun summer cruiser and a sweatbox on wheels. The power steering is another nice touch that'll make this classic much more manageable in daily driving situations. The 4-wheel disc brake setup is particularly intriguing. This wasn't a standard feature on the 62 Hawk, so it's likely a later upgrade that significantly improves the car's stopping power. This is the kind of modification that enhances safety without detracting from the car's classic character. Those 17-inch wheels with baby moons are a stylish touch. They're larger than what would have come on the car originally, which suggests they're an aftermarket addition. This slight upsizing can improve the car's stance and handling characteristics, not to mention giving it a bit more visual punch. The seller's description of excellent condition all the way around is encouraging, but as always, it's important to verify such claims in person. The lack of rust is a huge plus, especially for a car of this vintage. Studebakers weren't known for their rust resistance, so finding one this clean is a rare treat. 18. We're checking out a sweet ride that's caught my eye on Craigslist, a 1964 Ford Galaxy 500 4-door sedan. And let me tell you, this classic beauty is turning heads at a reduced price of $9,000 OBO. Now, I know what you're thinking. Another old sedan? But hold on, because this Galaxy is something special. The seller claims it's in great condition, and from the description, it sounds like they're not exaggerating. We're talking about a clean interior, which is often a rare find in cars of this vintage. Under the hood, you've got a V8 engine, classic American muscle right there. It's paired with an automatic transmission and rear-wheel drive, giving you that authentic 60s driving experience. The odometer shows 84,000 miles, which isn't too shabby for a car pushing 60 years old. One of the things that really caught my attention is that the seller says everything works on it. Now, if you've dealt with classic cars before, you know how rare that is. No fiddling with finicky electronics or hunting down obscure parts, at least not right away. The Galaxy is sporting a white paint job, which, if it's in good shape, can really make a car from this era pop. And here's the kicker. It's got a clean title. No headaches with paperwork or legal issues to worry about. But here's the real cherry on top. The seller claims this isn't just a garage queen. Nope, they're using it as a daily driver. That tells me two things. One, it's reliable enough for regular use, and two, it's not so pristine that you'd be afraid to actually drive it and enjoy it. Now, I always encourage potential buyers to do their due diligence. Check it out in person. Maybe bring along a mechanic friend if you can. While the seller describes it as being in excellent condition, it's always good to verify these things yourself. At $9,000 OBO, this Galaxy seems like it could be a great deal for someone looking to get into classic car ownership without breaking the bank. It's a piece of Ford history that you can actually use and enjoy, not just admire in your garage. So, if you're in the market for a classic that's more than just a pretty face, this 1964 Ford Galaxy 500 might just be the ticket. It's got style, it's got power, and if the seller's description is accurate, it's got reliability too. That's a combo that's hard to beat in the classic car world. Who's ready to cruise in 60s style? 19. We're diving into a real treat from the 80s luxury scene, a 1984 Cadillac Eldorado Biarritz convertible that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist for $14,500. Let me tell you, this isn't your average classic Caddy. First off, let's talk about that mileage. Only 49,000 miles on the clock. For a car pushing 40 years old, that's incredibly low. It's clear this Eldorado has been pampered, and being a garage-kept New Jersey car, it's likely escaped the worst of the elements. Now, feast your eyes on this color combo. We're talking a white exterior with a white convertible top, paired with a lipstick red leather interior. Talk about making a statement. It's like driving an ice cream sundae with a cherry on top. Under the hood, you've got Cadillac's V8 engine, paired with an automatic transmission. This big beauty is front-wheel drive, which was pretty cutting-edge for a luxury car of its time. The seller says it runs and drives great, which is music to any classic car lover's ears. The owner mentions they're downsizing their collection, which often means these cars have been well maintained. They've put in a new battery, fresh oil, and it's riding on Vogue tires, a premium choice that really suits a car of this caliber. Some cool features to note. It's got the parade boot, which is great for showing off that red interior when the top is down. Even the factory antenna is working, a small detail, but one that speaks to the overall condition of the car. Now, I always encourage potential buyers to do their due diligence. While the seller describes it as being in excellent condition, it's always wise to inspect a classic car in person or have it checked by a professional. At $14,500, this Eldorado Biarritz convertible seems like a solid deal for someone looking to cruise in 80s luxury style. It's not often you find these convertibles in such good condition with low mileage. So, if you're in the market for a classic that turns heads, offers a smooth ride, and lets you soak up the sun in style, this 1984 Cadillac Eldorado Biarritz convertible might just be your ticket to ride. Just imagine cruising down the boulevard, top down, red interior gleaming in the sun. Now that's living the Cadillac dream. 20. We're taking a look at a piece of 80s American luxury, a 1983 Oldsmobile Toronado that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist for $4,800. Now let me give you the straight scoop on this classic ride. First off, this Toronado has only 55,496 original miles on the clock, which is pretty impressive for a car pushing 40 years old. The seller bought it from a 90-plus-year-old original owner, so you know it's got some stories to tell. Under the hood, you've got the 307 V8 engine paired with an automatic overdrive transmission. It's a front-wheel drive setup, which was pretty innovative for its time. The seller says it runs and drives very well, getting better each time it hits the road. Now, let's talk about the condition. I've got to be honest with you, this Toronado is a bit of a mixed bag. The seller is upfront about its flaws, which I appreciate. The silver paint job looks good from a distance, but up close, you'll see it's had a poor repaint job. If you're handy with a spray gun or know a good body shop, this could be your chance to make it shine. The interior is described as very good, except for the lower driver's side seat and the headliner, which needs replacing. The seller's already removed the wasted headliner material, so that's one less job for you to do. On the plus side, it's got new tires with less than 100 miles on them, a new radiator, fresh valve cover gaskets, and a recent transmission service. The brake lines and hood struts have also been replaced. These are all good signs that the car has been cared for mechanically. The front bumper fillers have been replaced, but the rear ones still need doing. The seller even provides the cost for these parts, $480 plus paint, which is helpful for budgeting your project. One of the coolest things about this Toronado is that it comes with the original window sticker, canceled title, and some other documents. That's gold for any classic car enthusiast. Now, $4,800 might seem a bit steep given the cosmetic issues, but with the low mileage and recent mechanical work, it could be a solid starting point for negotiations. The seller seems motivated to sell, mentioning they need to let it go due to lack of space and time. So if you're in the market for a project car with good bones, or if you're looking for a unique daily driver that stands out from the crowd, this 1983 Oldsmobile Toronado could be worth a look. Just remember, you'll need to budget for that paint job and some interior work to really make it shine. But hey, that's half the fun of owning a classic, right?